You know that feeling when you are staring at your screen and you've got maybe 14 tabs open? Your Slack is just constantly pinging, your inbox is a complete disaster zone, and you suddenly realize you are just utterly exhausted.
Yeah, that deeply familiar, soul-crushing modern work fatigue.
Right, like you are feeling the literal weight of modern work, the endless emails, the Zoom fatigue, all of it just pressing down on you. Well, today's mission is to dismantle that exact feeling.
Which I think we all desperately need right now.
Seriously. So in this deep dive, we are unpacking Hal Newport's book, Slow Productivity: The Lost Art of Accomplishment Without Burnout. We have a massive stack of source material here that frankly challenges everything we think we know about getting things done.
It really does turn the whole hustle culture thing completely upside down.
It totally does. And the goal today is to figure out how you, the listener, can actually accomplish great things without burning out by looking at Newport's 3 core principles, which are do fewer things, work at a natural pace, and obsess over quality.
But, before we even get into the modern office and all those pings and tabs, we really need a baseline for what real productivity actually looks like.
Right, because our current baseline is so skewed. So where do we start?
To find that baseline, we should look back to the summer of 1966. There's this story about John McPhee, a staff writer for The New Yorker. He is lying on his back on a picnic table under an ash tree in his backyard in Princeton, New Jersey.
Okay, just taking a quick break.
No, he stays there for 2 straight weeks.
Wait, 2 weeks, literally just lying on a picnic table.
Literally lying there, staring at the sky, completely paralyzed. I mean, he had spent 8 months researching this massive piece on the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, gathering what he later called enough material to fill a silo.
Wow.
Yeah. And now it's time to write. So he lies on that table for 14 days until, finally, a structural hook comes to him. It was a man named Fred Brown. So it gets off the table, goes to this modest little rental office above an optometrist shop, and spends over a year writing a 30,000-word masterpiece.
I mean, to any modern manager walking by that backyard, lying on a picnic table for 2 weeks looks like the absolute ultimate form of laziness.
Oh, they'd fire him immediately.
Right. It looks like stealing time from an employer. But the thing is, John McPhee went on to publish 29 books and win a Pulitzer Prize.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that he was undeniably profoundly productive.
Which really begs the question, if lying on a picnic table to think is a proven method for producing brilliant work, why does the modern office demand that we look furiously busy at every single second of the day?
Well, I mean, that comes down to how corporate management fundamentally defines what work even is. And a perfect illustration of this comes from the summer of 1995.
Oh, the CBS story. I love this one.
It's so telling, right? So Les Moonves had just been appointed the head of entertainment for CBS. He is walking the halls of their massive television city headquarters in Los Angeles. It's 3:30 p.m. on a Friday.
Which in LA on a Friday in the summer is basically the weekend already.
Exactly. And the office is 3/4 empty. Now, CBS is currently in 3rd place in the network ratings, and they are really struggling. Moonves sees the empty desks, gets absolutely furious, and fires off this heated memo to his staff, basically saying, we are in 3rd place. My guess is that at ABC and NBC, they're still working at 3:30 on Friday. This will no longer be tolerated.
Just a classic angry boss memo.
Right. And Newport calls this pseudo-productivity. It's this idea of using visible activity as the primary means of approximating actual productive effort.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I
Yeah.
have to push back a little. If I'm a manager in 1995, how else am I supposed to measure my employees?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. I mean, I can't look inside their brains to see if they're solving a complex problem or just, daydreaming about what they're going to eat for dinner. It's like a teacher grading you on perfect attendance because they literally don't know how to grade the actual test. Visible activity was the only tool they had to know if people were doing their jobs.
You're completely right. And that is the exact historical crisis of knowledge work. Because up until the mid-20th century, productivity was incredibly easy to measure. The output was physical.
Like farming or manufacturing.
Exactly. Think about agriculture in the 17th century. Farmers adopted the Norfolk four-core system of crop rotation. Instead of leaving a field empty for a season to let the soil recover, they rotated wheat, turnips, barley, and clover.
Oh, right, because the turnips and clover naturally restore nitrogen to the soil.
While also feeding the livestock, yeah. The mechanism was incredibly simple. Change the inputs, and you visibly, measurably grow more food per acre. The math is completely clean.
And that concept translated directly into the Industrial Revolution. Like, if Frederick Winslow Taylor, the famous efficiency consultant, studies workers shoveling slag iron at Bethlehem Steel, he can calculate the exact optimal load.
Yes, the 21-pound shovel.
Right. A shovel holding exactly 21 pounds of material maximizes daily output without injuring the worker. So for management, you just count the shovels.
But then the economy shifts, right? Suddenly, it is dominated by knowledge workers. And management theorists, like Peter Drucker and Tom Davenport, they quickly realize those crisp, quantitative metrics completely vanish in an office setting.
Because what are you counting?
Exactly. How do you measure a university professor's productivity? You might think, well, just count the number of papers they publish.
But what if they published fewer papers one year because they were chairing a critical academic committee that saved the university millions of dollars?
Precisely. Their value isn't a single, continuous physical task.
I mean, a modern worker might be drafting a client report, answering HR emails, gathering website testimonials, and organizing the office holiday party literally all in the same afternoon.
Yeah, there's no 21-pound shovel for an office worker.
No shovel, no bushels of wheat, nothing you can weigh.
And because the work is cognitive and deeply varied, companies essentially just threw up their hands. They couldn't measure the actual creation of value happening inside your brain, so they defaulted to the proxy metric.
Pseudo-productive.
Exactly. If I can see you typing, if you are sitting at your desk at 3:30 p.m. on a Friday, you must be generating value.
But, that proxy metric might have been somewhat tolerable when it just meant looking busy at a physical desk from 9 to 5. Like you could shuffle some papers when the boss walked by and then just go home.
We've all done the paper shuffle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what happens when technology makes it possible to perform that busyness 24 hours a day? I mean, the source material gives us this terrifying data point from the software company Rescue Time.
Oh, this stat is wild.
It really is. So they analyzed log data from over 10,000 knowledge workers, and they found that the average person was checking their inbox once every 6 minutes.
Every 6 minutes. Just let that sink in.
It's absurd. With laptops and smartphones, the need to perform busyness never stops. It follows you to the couch at night, to your kid's soccer game on Saturday. You have to constantly prove you are working by being responsive.
And that is the breaking point. Because it is physically impossible to do deep, meaningful cognitive work if your brain is evaluating a new threat or demand in an inbox every 6 minutes.
It just shatters your focus. But returning to that 1995 CBS memo for a second, Les Moonves demanding that his staff sit at their desks late on a Friday did not actually save the network.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, no, it didn't save them at all. The actual salvation of CBS came from the complete opposite of pseudo-productivity.
Right. It came from Anthony Zucker.
Yes, a 26-year-old Las Vegas casino tram operator.
I love this story. So this guy, he's making $8 an hour ferrying tourists between the Mirage and Treasure Island. And he's just feeling like his natural talent for writing is being completely wasted.
He was definitely not in a corporate job sending emails every 6 minutes.
No, not at all. He basically writes an original monologue for an actor friend. An agent hears it and asks for screenplay. So Zucker goes out, buys a literal book on how to write screenplays, writes one, and sells it.
Which then secures him a meeting with Jerry Bruckheimer's production company.
Exactly. And they ask him to pitch TV ideas. So he comes up with this concept for a forensic police show. And he doesn't just sit at a desk. He spends time with the Las Vegas Police Department researching it.
He was really in the trenches with them.
Yeah. He was out with crime scene investigators, like combing a bedroom carpet for clues. And get this, when he looked under the bed, the actual suspect was hiding right there, swiping at him.
That is terrifying.
I know, but that visceral immersion convinced him the show would work. He wasn't sending emails. He was doing deep, intense research. He spent over 3 years obsessively nurturing, rewriting, and pitching that single idea.
And even when CBS finally financed a pilot, the executives didn't get it. They told him to rewrite the whole thing.
Yeah, and it came down to the absolute last-minute scheduling deadline for the fall slate. Les Moonves had one open slot left for Friday nights. He had to choose between Zucker's forensic show and a Tony Danza comedy called Homewood P.I.
You can't even imagine that timeline.
Yeah, right. But Moonves went with his gut and chose Zucker. That show was CSI. And combined with Survivor, it rocketed CBS from third place straight to first.
Which is incredible. And it really highlights that Zucker wasn't successful because he typed faster or answered emails quicker than the people Moonves was yelling at in that 1995 memo.
Exactly. His path wasn't busy in a 9 to 5 way. It was sporadic, obsessive, and deliberate. I mean, he wasn't sending status updates. He was building a rocket ship in his backyard while everyone else was just furiously pedaling stationary bikes.
That is a great way to put it. His value came from the depth of his synthesis. He was connecting disparate dots. Vegas casinos, police forensics, script writing, and that is a cognitive process that fundamentally requires unstructured time.
Day to day, his process would have looked incredibly inefficient to a middle manager.
Well, completely. It points to a definition of valuable work that relies on a pace that is essentially slow.
But, okay, it's easy to say work slower when you're a lone writer like McPhee or a Hollywood creator like Zucker. But how on earth do you apply that to a normal, rigid corporate culture?
Right, for the person who actually has a boss tracking their Slack status.
Exactly. And to figure out how to force a cultural shift like that, the sources suggest we actually have to look at a completely different industry, food, specifically Rome in 1986.
This is such a brilliant pivot in the book. So in 1986, McDonald's had announced they were opening a massive 450-seat restaurant right near the base of the Spanish Steps in Rome.
Right in the historical heart of the city.
Exactly. And the locals were understandably outraged. The famous fashion designer Valentino even complained that the smell of French fries would ruin his couture outfits.
That is the most Italian complaint ever.
Right. The mayor actually formed a special garbage squad just to hunt down the hamburger wrappers he assumed would flood the ancient streets. Yeah. And out of this visceral clash of cultures like the ultimate symbol of frantic American efficiency dropping into traditional Italian life, an activist named Carlo Petrini launched the slow food movement.
And what Petrini realized is so smart. He realized you can't just complain about a changing culture.
No, complaining never works on its own.
Right. You have to offer a genuinely appealing alternative. And you have to draw your solutions from time-tested traditions. So he proposed the sensual pleasure of long communal meals and rich local cuisines, pointing back to how Italian villages had eaten for centuries.
Because traditions that survive the gauntlet of cultural evolution usually do so because they align with human nature. Petrini's framework absolutely exploded. Slow food led to slow cities, redesigning urban spaces for pedestrians.
Oh, and it led to slow medicine too, right?
Yes, focusing on holistic patient care rather than just churning through 15-minute appointments.
Okay, but how does eating a local Vesuvian apricot or a long Italian meal translate to me sitting at my laptop on a Tuesday morning trying to answer 50 HR emails?
Well, it translates by applying Petrini's rules to cognitive labor. We need an appealing alternative to pseudo-productivity drawn from time-tested traditions.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Because before the modern cubicle, cognitive professions existed for centuries. Scientists, philosophers, authors. Think about Isaac Newton. He didn't invent calculus in a frantic 2-week sprint between Zoom meetings.
Definitely no Zoom for Newton.
No. He spent over 20 years in the countryside working through the details of the Principia. Or Peter Benchley. He didn't write Jaws in a bustling open-plan office. He wrote it hiding out in the back room of a furnace repair shop.
Just completely isolated.
Exactly. The tradition of successful cognitive labor relies on deep focus and a complete disregard for looking busy. This is what Newport formalizes as slow productivity, and it really starts with his first concrete principle: do fewer things.
Which brings us to the Jane Austen myth. To really understand the sheer mechanical power of doing fewer things, we have to bust this massive historical myth.
Yes, I love this part.
So Jane Austen publishes Sense and Sensibility in 1811 as Lady A, and then she goes on this historic tear, just cranking out Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, and Emma before tragically dying at 41.
An unbelievable run of masterpieces.
Unbelievable. But the popular myth, which was actually started by her nephew James in an 1869 biography, and then later repeated by writers like Virginia Woolf, was that Jane Austen wrote in secret.
Right, the creaky door myth.
Yes, the story claims she had no private study, so she would sit in the family sitting room, hiding her manuscript under a piece of blotting paper whenever she heard the creak of a door hinge.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because that myth, it's basically the 19th century version of modern hustle culture.
Oh, 100%. It's a narrative telling us that Jane Austen didn't need uninterrupted focus. She just hustled harder between her social obligations. It implies that if you just wake up at 5 a.m. and write on your phone while waiting in the Starbucks drive-thru, you too can produce a masterpiece.
But this raises an important question, right? Because modern biographers, looking at primary sources, have proven that image is completely false.
Entirely fabricated.
Jane Austen grew up on a working farm in rural Hampshire. She was milking cows, brewing beer, tending poultry, and boiling jams.
Which is a full-time job already.
And furthermore, her father ran a boys' school out of their parsonage. She was literally helping manage the care, feeding, and cleaning for a house full of stampeding schoolboys. And during that entire period of intense busyness, she produced almost nothing of major significance.
Yeah, she only had a few early drafts.
Right. But then, in 1796, her father decides to close the boys' school. The family moves, and her massive list of chores is drastically reduced. It is only after her obligations are slashed, only when she is finally allowed to do fewer things, that she enters her period of phenomenal productivity.
She didn't squeeze her masterpieces into the margins of a busy life. She required the margins to be cleared out to create them.
Exactly. That is the fundamental mechanism of doing fewer things. The modern knowledge worker is just drowning in tasks, and the danger isn't just the work itself, it's the administrative overhead.
The meetings about the work.
Yes, if you have 40 things on your plate, the emails about the things, the status updates about the things, and the meetings to discuss the things take up so much time that you literally cannot execute the work itself.
Okay, but what is actually happening inside the brain when you are managing that much overhead? Like, why does checking an inbox every 6 minutes, like in that rescue time study, completely destroy our ability to work?
It comes down to a neurological mechanism called attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah. When you switch your focus from, say, writing a complex report to reading a Slack message, and then you switch back to the report, your brain doesn't transition cleanly.
It's still partly on the Slack message.
Exactly. A piece of your attention remains stuck on whatever that message was. If you do this every 6 minutes, the residue compounds. Your cognitive capacity plummets. You are essentially operating with a temporarily lowered IQ.
Wow.
So doing fewer things isn't about doing less total work. It's about reducing the number of active projects so you can eliminate the overhead and the attention residue that prevents deep thought.
Which brings us directly to Newport's second principle, work at a natural pace. If we do clear out the administrative overhead and the constant pinging, how fast are we supposed to be running on the projects we actually keep?
Well, slower than you think, and with much more variation.
Huh.
Because human beings just did not evolve to maintain a continuous, unyielding state of peak intensity year-round. We evolved for seasonality.
Okay, give me an example.
Consider the working habits of Charles Darwin.
Okay.
When he was writing on the origin of species, his daily schedule was famously relaxed. He worked in short, intense bursts of maybe 3 hours a day.
3 hours, that's it.
That's it. The rest of his time was spent taking long walks on a path he called his sandwalk, where he was reading or writing letters. He engaged in seasons of intense intellectual focus, followed by seasons of rest and percolation.
That is the exact opposite of the modern corporate expectation. We treat every single week like a sprint, 50 weeks a year. We literally expect continuous year-round peak output.
And operating that way physically degrades your cognitive hardware.
Hmm.
If you never have a fallow season, burnout isn't just a psychological feeling. It is a neurological inevitability.
It's guaranteed to happen.
Absolutely. A natural pace involves cyclically varying your intensity. You might push incredibly hard on a software launch for 2 months, but then you need a month of low-intensity, exploratory work to recover. Over a 5-year horizon, the knowledge worker who embraces seasonality and rests will actually produce vastly more value than the worker who grinds at maximum capacity and burns out in year 2.
It's about shifting the measurement of your value from a daily checklist of tasks to a multi-year portfolio of accomplishments.
Exactly.
But I have to say, that sounds terrifying for a normal employee. If I tell my manager I am working at a natural pace and taking a fallow season to walk in the woods like Charles Darwin, I am probably getting fired.
Right, yeah. That is the major friction point of this entire philosophy. And it is exactly why Newport's third principle is the glue that makes the whole system possible.
Obsess over quality.
Yes.
So how does obsessing over quality protect you from a manager who just wants to see you typing at your desk?
Because quality is the currency that buys you autonomy. If the work you produce is undeniably exceptional, the people managing you will eventually stop caring about your proxy metrics.
I won't care if you're answering Slack in 2 seconds.
Right. Think about the tech industry. A software developer who spends 2 weeks quietly thinking, maybe taking walks, and then writes a brilliant piece of code that solves a massive architectural flaw in the company's database. That person is immensely valuable.
Way more valuable than someone who just looks busy.
They are far more valuable than a developer who frantically closes 50 minor help desk tickets a day, but never actually solves the core problem.
The mechanism there is leverage. When you obsess over quality, it fundamentally forces you to slow down because you simply cannot rush a masterpiece. And once you deliver that masterpiece, that high quality acts as a shield. Clients and bosses want your exceptional results more than they want your visible busyness.
It's what Steve Martin famously advised: be so good they can't ignore you. If you are doing fewer things and working at a natural pace, the only way to justify that to the market is to make sure the few things you do produce are so spectacularly good that the market tolerates your slow pace. Quality is your ultimate defense mechanism against pseudo-productivity.
Wow. We have really covered a massive paradigm shift today. I mean, we've seen how Les Moonves and the 1995 corporate mindset tricked us into thinking that visible busyness is the modern equivalent of Henry Ford's assembly line.
Right, weighing the shovels.
Exactly. We've seen how checking our email every 6 minutes creates an attention residue that literally destroys our ability to think. But the true legends of cognitive work prove there is a better way. You have Anthony Zucker spending 3 years obsessively nurturing the idea for CSI.
Jane Austen needing the overwhelming chores of a boys' school removed before she can write Emma.
Charles Darwin varying his intensity with long walks. They all prove that real accomplishment happens when you do fewer things at a natural pace and obsess over quality.
And, slow productivity is not an anti-ambition movement. It is not about checking out or doing the bare minimum or quiet quitting.
Right.
It is about sustainable ambition. It's
Yeah.
aligning your daily efforts with the biological reality of how the human brain actually creates value. You are trading the hollow exhaustion of constantly performing busyness for the profound satisfaction of actually making something great over the long term.
Trading the exhaustion of looking busy for the satisfaction of making something great. I love that. As you look at your own overwhelming to-do list, here's a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. If your boss or your client suddenly lost the ability to see how busy you are, if they couldn't see your Slack dot turn green, and they couldn't measure how fast you reply to an email, what is the one deeply valuable thing you would spend your time building for them instead? And what is stopping you from starting that tomorrow?